Hey guys, I'm Rebecca Busick and welcome back to my channel. If you want to see what I think about the new Urban Decay Backtalk palette and how I got this look here, then go ahead and just keep on watching. All right, so let's go ahead and jump on in. So this is how the outer unicarton looks. It's got the colors and shades here on the back. Palette retails for $46, and when you open her up, she slides out like this, so it mimics the outer packaging. And when you open it up, and it's a very heavy cardboard, it's cardboard, but it's a nice thick cardboard. When you open it up, you've got your blushes and highlights here, a magnetic removable mirror in the center, and then you've got your shadows there. So that is the basics of the palette. This mirror here pops out and then it magnetizes back in. I've already swatched the shadows and the face products on my arm just for the interest of saving time. Do you guys prefer live swatches or me to already have them swatched like this for saving time? Let me know in the comments. So, cheap shot, double take, low key, and party foul. And the blushes here are very pigmented. And then the next three sheets, oh, I kind of pulled them over wrong, huh? So 3 sheets, bare, curve, Backtalk, which is the shade that inspired the palette from their liquid, or from their lipstick line, shade, attitude, WTF, and 180. And these swatches, I definitely had to really dig my finger in the pan to get them, not the face products, but the eyeshadows. I really had to dig back and forth to get them this pigmented. And there are only 3 mattes in the palette, which are 3 sheets, Backtalk, and WTF. I will say I'm not the biggest fan. Oh, sorry, I'm blinding you guys here with the magnetic mirror. I find it just kind of clunky. It gets in the way. It pops out, like if you're opening and closing the palette, it falls out and gets in the way. And the mirror itself is so slim that you can't see yourself in it that much. So even though I thought it was a cool concept, the execution just doesn't really work for me. So that being said, let's get into, I'm going to do this eye on camera with you and we will talk about what I think of this palette. So the first shade I'm going to go into, and I've used every shade in this palette. I've used this palette for 4 days, 4 times. This is my 4th or 5th time. So I've used every shade in this palette and done different looks. So the first shade I'm going to go in with is that 3 sheets, that kind of pinky cream color. And I am going to just set my lid up to my brow bone. So one thing I definitely wish in this palette was there was another matte color. I feel like since the 3 sheets color, at least on my skin tone, only shows up as cream, I can't really get a ton of use out of it other than setting my eye. And I like to put 2 to 3 matte shades in my crease. So you're a little limited. I wish they would have gotten rid of the 180 shade, which is a dark shimmering brown. And I wish they would have replaced it with another matte shade, another transition shade. But I'm going to take Backtalk on this Sigma. I think it's an, what is it? Oh, wait, just kidding. This is a Morphe M532. I was thinking this was my Sigma brush, but either way, they're both just big fluffy brushes. And I am going to lay Backtalk down just kind of all over as my transition shade, which is exactly what I did on the other eye. I think the mattes perform nicely in this palette. They don't kick up really at all in the pan, even with a big fluffy brush like this. They really don't kick up, which is nice. I mean, I don't mind some kick up as long as the shadows perform well. but if that bothers you, they really don't kick up much in the pan. So the mattes perform really nicely. Sigma E35 tapered blending brush, and I'm going to take Backtalk again. This brush is nice because you can kind of turn it sideways and use it to kind of place color, and then, or flat to place color, and then turn it sideways to blend. And I'm going to blend down a little lower, and this is still a blending brush, but because it's not so fluffy, it's going to place the color a little bit more concentrated. And this is, again, just that same Backtalk shade. I'm trying to get multiple uses out of the mattes in the palette. So by building it up a little deeper, I'll get a little bit more of that blended effect. Then I'm going to take, this is a Limelight pointed blender brush, and I'm going to take the WTF, which is that warm mid-tone matte brown, and I'm going to take it even lower in my crease again. I'm trying to make the most out of the mattes in the palette. And so this is going, the point of this brush is going to place the brown, but also then because it fluffs out on the sides, it's going to blend at the same time, and it's not going to lay it down too heavy. So I can kind of have that gradient effect from the brown to the little bit deeper of the Backtalk shade, and then up to the more fluffed out, the more blended out that I place with that really big Morphe brush. And this is exactly what I did with the other eye. So you can see there, the mattes perform really nicely. They blend really nicely. Take, and I'm going to pack that brown on my outer corner to create some definition. And this is a Limelight. This is like an angled brush, which is good for kind of stamping color on the outer corner there. So my overall thoughts on this palette, I am kind of underwhelmed. I decided to try it for multiple days straight rather than doing a first impression, because on Sephora's website I was seeing a lot of mixed reviews, and this palette was honestly one I was super excited. As soon as I saw it online, I'm like, I have to have that. I love the monochromatic, I love the blush tones, and you know, I'm wearing my blush jacket to kind of go with the vibe. Love it. I was so excited, and even though I think the mattes perform really well in the palette, like I said, I wish there was another matte shade. Don't feel like it's as versatile. I know it's supposed to be monochromatic, but I wish there was one more matte shade that fit into the kind of color scheme. Because even packing this brown on multiple times, I can't get it to be that much deeper than to create that extra, you know, that dimension on my outer corner. I really can't pack it that deep to get a really deeper, smoky outer corner. I really wish there was that one more matte color. I'm going to take Backtalk again and run it through the crease just to blend everything. I really feel I'm a little limited. I wish there was another tone that fit in with this monochromatic kind of theme, just to make the palette a little bit more versatile. And honestly, the shimmers are what is the most underwhelming. The shimmers, you really have to dig into the palette. You can build them up, you can get them there, but you really have to dig into the palette a lot to really build the color up. They're not super pigmented, and it's not even the pigment for me. They are not very reflective or shimmery. They're kind of flat on the eyes. I've tried them with spraying them with setting spray. I've tried them on their own. I build them up, and they're not very shimmery. They're kind of flat on the eye, and I like a very shimmery, sparkly shimmer, you know. So that's what's kind of disappointing for me about this palette, is the shimmer shades. So I'm going to take Curve, and I'm going to pack that on the inner portion of my lid, and I am like digging my finger in right now. So I've got that product on there, and I am going to pat it on the lid, and I don't know if you can see, it's not super pigmented. I'm gonna have to build it up, and it's just it doesn't have any really sparkle, it's any shine. It's really flat. And they don't feel very creamy. And they said, I really have to dig into the pan to get this effect. And I'm continuing to build it up. Now this one does have a little bit of micro shimmer in it. Bare, the other light shade next to it, does not. And that one really looks flat on the eyes. This one's a little bit prettier because it has a little bit of micro shimmer. I don't know if that will pick up on my phone. Blending that together. I'm just not very impressed with the shimmers in the palette, and the shimmers are primarily what you're getting. So the eyeshadow side it just really doesn't do it for me. And I'm sad. I'm sorry, I'm looking for a certain brush. I'm sad because I was so excited about this palette. Now I'm going to take Backtalk and I'm just going to run it under the lower lash line. Sorry, my eyes are watering, so it's kind of making it go on a little darker over there. This left eye of mine always waters. I don't understand. Because this eye doesn't. This eye always waters in this outer corner. So I'm just running that under the lower lash line, smoking it out a bit. On this little short kind of shader brush, this E20 from Sigma, I'm going to take that WTF shade in kind of the outer third. I'm going to kind of stamp it close to the lash line and then kind of bring it in as there's less product on the brush. Pop some brown eyeliner on, which I'm going to use this Brown Makeup Geek just in my waterline. I've used every shade in the palette. And the first day I used it, I used Shade and Attitude, which is Shade's kind of a purpley mauve tone, and then Attitude is more of a pinky red shimmer, and I used them on the lid. And on my lid, they didn't look much different. They just kind of both looked kind of pinky reddish on my eyes. I didn't get that purpley color from the shade color. And then by the end of the day, which I only had the eye look on for like 5.5 hours, they had faded a lot. I'm going to take this up just to my upper waterline here. They had faded a ton, and they kind of migrated together, and they literally just looked like one color all over my lid. I did take a picture. I will see if I can insert that into the video. I'm not very good with the YouTube editing. I really only know how to like delete clips at this point. They just kind of migrated together. They faded really bad. I've tried this palette with Urban Decay Primer Potion. I've tried it with MAC Painterly Soft Ochre Paint Pot. I've tried it just with my normal Shape Tape set with powder, which is what I did today, which is normally what I always do. So I've tried it 3 different ways as far as priming my lids, and they all fade really fast on me. And I don't have super oily eyelids, so anyways, I'll get to my mascara. The Lancome Bonjour Big mascara. I did read on Sephora's website, some people said I have cool undertones and I'm very fair, that it looks better on deeper skin tones or warmer undertones rather than cool. That seemed to be something a lot of people I saw kind of in the reviews that said, oh yeah, I agree with the previous review on warm skin tones. This looks really nice on cool skin tones. It just doesn't pop or show up. So maybe it is just my skin tone, kind of flat. They almost just look like a matte across the lid. They don't have that really pop that I like. And since that is primarily what the palette is shimmers, it just kind of a disappointment. It doesn't all have to be like high foiled metallic for me to like it, but I do want that brightness, that shimmer. I want to see that, you know, on my lid. I want to see the difference between it being a matte color in my crease and it being a shimmer shade on my lid. So that is the finished eye look. You know, don't get me wrong, I think it came out pretty. I just don't think, between the limited amount of mattes in the palette and the lack of the real punch of the shimmers, I just don't think I am wowed, blown away by this side of the palette. So now let's move on. And I have tried all of the face products. Yesterday I wore Cheap Shot. Today I'm gonna wear Double Take. And Cheap Shot's a lot more shimmery. Double Take's a little bit more like satin. We are very pigmented, the blushes, so go in light and build them up, which is what I'm doing. I don't like an overly blush look. If you go in too heavy, they are hard to blend out. They get a little, they kind of cling and they get hard to blend. If you go in too heavy, it will cling and patch to your skin, and then if you really have to aggressively blend, then you're moving your foundation underneath and making it look patchy. So be careful with the blushes, and if you don't like shimmer blushes, you won't like these. Cheap Shots definitely shimmer. Double Take, which I'm using today, is a little bit more satin, but it definitely still has some sheen to it. So that is Double Take on the skin. I think the blushes are pretty, but you got to be careful with them. They might not be the most wearable shades for everybody. I'm okay with going a little out of the box with colors, so the shades don't put me off. Like I said, I think the shade range in this palette is beautiful, but be careful, because if you go in too heavy, you're gonna be blending forever and left with kind of patchiness. And then low key, this highlight here isn't very reflective on my skin tone. If you have a deeper skin tone, it's probably going to be a lot more reflective, but because Party Foul is definitely a lot more suited to my skin to get that kind of beaming highlight that I like. So this is an Anastasia A23 highlighting brush, and I'm going to load it up and go into Party Foul. And I like with my highlights, I don't just like to sweep them and be done. I like to blend them in, really get the pearls kind of melted into my skin. I'm going to build that up a little bit more so that they really meld and become one, and you really get the most out of them by buffing the kind of shimmer or pearls into the skin. I'm going to take this up and around. Still, when I build it up, I can't really get it to be as beaming as I want. I like a pretty beaming highlight. I like Ofra highlights. I like really dewy, high shine highlights. I like the Hourglass Ambient Lighting, the metallic strobe palette. I like the Amrezy Anastasia highlight. So I like pretty glowy blinding. This is more reflective in the ring light than it is in real life. But that is mostly, I'm sure, because of my skin tone. I am very fair. So I think pinky highlights are going to typically reflect more on people's skin that have a little more color than I do. So with the face side, my thoughts on the face side of the palette. I think the blushes are very pigmented, but be careful with them or they are really going to cling to the cheek if you go in too heavy. But if you go in with a light hand, I think they are pretty. I'm going to set here. But if you go in with a light hand, I think they are very pretty, very pigmented. The highlighters are probably not quite right for my skin tone, but my main issue is not so much that, because I could brighten them up with, like I have the Nikkie Tutorials Everglow highlighter. I could take a touch of that and brighten it up at the top to lighten them up a little bit. Is that they just sit on top of my skin and they enhance my texture. They don't meld into my skin, because I like that very dewy, wet, high shine highlighter that really just beams and looks one with my skin. I don't like when it sits on top of my skin. These really emphasize the texture that I have right through here. So even though I think the shades are pretty, and I'm sure these would be beautiful on deeper skin tones, For me, they just don't sit nice on my skin. Oh, and also if you don't put the mirror back right, the palette will not close all the way. Even though I have the magnetic side on it, it has a certain side that it actually, so I had the magnetic part, but it has a certain side that it actually has to sit in for the palette to close. And when you move this back and forth, like as you're using it, it kind of falls out, it's clunky. So overall, this is just not for me. I do not think this is worth $46. I don't think the eyeshadows, at least the shimmers, are pigmented or bright and shiny enough. I think the highlighters emphasize texture and they sit on top of the skin. I don't think they meld in even after setting spray. Really probably my favorite part of the palette is the blushes, but the blushes are not enough for me to be wowed, blown away by this. And I am sadly going to be returning this because, and even though I was so excited about this palette, this is just not blowing me away, and I would rather spend that money elsewhere on something I really enjoy and love, because honestly, I probably won't reach for this very often. So that is my thoughts on the Urban Decay Backtalk palette, and hopefully I'm really able to edit down this video, because looking at the timer, yikes. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. Drop me a comment below. Do you have this palette? Do you love it? What do you think? Are you on the fence about it? Let me know your thoughts on this palette, because just because I don't like it doesn't mean you won't enjoy it. We all have different tastes and wants, different skin tones, different skin textures. So let me know what you think about this, and I will see you guys on the next one.